Sure, here's a great detailed summary of the passage you shared, written in the simplest and clearest way for easy understanding. Detailed summary. After defeating the Chalukyas, Krishna Rastrakuta became the new king, Vallabha, of the Rastrakuta Empire. He established his rule and gave himself majestic and powerful titles to show his greatness. Names like Subhatunga, very fortunate, and then Akalavasha, giver of unexpected blessings, and most importantly, Sri Pralaya Mahavaraha, which means the great boar of the apocalypse. This title connects him to the myth of the god Varaha, a form of Vishnu, who had once saved the earth during a great flood. By using this name, Krishna wanted to show himself as a divine savior who rescued the land, India, from the bad rule of the Chalukyas, just like Varaha saved the earth. He claimed that the Chalukyas were not righteous or strong anymore, so he had to step in and save the people. In their official records and inscriptions, propaganda, Rastrakutas painted Krishna as a heroic and ideal against enemies, generous to the poor, loved by women. This was meant to impress the people and legitimize his rule. Ironically, the Chalukyas had done the same thing long ago when they overthrew the Kadambas, saying the Kadambas were weak and needed to be replaced. Now, the same fate had come to the Chalukyas. This shows a repeating cycle of power in Indian history. We don't know much about what exactly happened to the Chalukya family or their home area in the Malaprabha Valley, but we do know that they lost their power completely. One major group affected by this change was the Ganga dynasty. The Gangas were old, respected rulers who had close marriage ties with the Chalukyas. Because of their status and pride, they didn't want to submit to Krishna Rastrakuta, especially since the Rastrakutas were shifting the center of power northward, which would make the Gangas less important. As a result, the Rastrakutas punished the Gangas, causing suffering and conflict. This shows how changing power in ancient India could bring violence and destruction, especially when powerful groups refused to accept new rulers. Main points at a glance. 1. Krishna Rastrakuta became king after defeating the Chalukyas. 2. He gave himself grand titles, comparing himself to Varaha, the god who saved the earth. 3. He claimed he was saving India from the bad rule of the Chalukyas. 4. The Rastrakutas used propaganda to show Krishna as a strong, kind and divine ruler. 5. Ironically, the Chalukyas had done the same thing earlier to the Kadambas. 6. The Chalukyas disappeared from power and little is known about their final days. 7. The Gangas, who were close to the Chalukyas, refused to accept Rastrakuta rule. 8. The Rastrakutas attacked the Gangas, leading to violence and loss. Would you like this summary turned into a mind map, timeline, or a set of revision flashcards? Here is a great detailed summary of the passage in the simplest and clearest way possible, covering everything important. Detailed summary in simplest words. A terrible war broke out again in southern Karnataka, bringing pain and destruction. The war caused many people to suffer. Families were broken, people were killed, homes were burned, and the land was filled with grief. In the middle of this tragedy was the old Ganga king. Even though he had lost a battle to the Tamils before and his powerful nephew, the Chalukya king, had died, he refused to give up. The Ganga king took on the title through Sri Prithvi Vallabha, meaning beloved of the earth, showing he still saw himself as a mighty ruler. He then called upon his vassal kings, local rulers under him, with names like Mutta, Nagata, Jadiya, and others. He ordered them to gather their armies and join the fight against the invading Rastrakutas, who were a powerful enemy. These vassal kings and many brave Ganga soldiers joined the battle. Many of them had fought bravely in earlier wars, like against the Pallavas. But this time, they were defeated by the strong Rastrakuta army. The battles took place in places like Pinchanur, Kajamogia, Ogaboli, and Bega. Many brave men died, including sons, brothers, uncles, commanders, ordinary soldiers. They were all equally destroyed by the Rastrakuta elephants and sharp swords, which moved like a wild forest fire, killing everything in their path. After each bloody battle, the Ganga people, filled with sorrow, built hero stones. These were stone memorials, placed to honor the warriors who had died bravely. The people wanted to give meaning to the warriors' deaths by remembering their courage, loyalty, and sense of duty. Dhamma. These stones were not just monuments, they became sacred places. The people decorated the stones with flowers and cloth and made offerings like rice. Sometimes they even performed self-harm as a part of their grief and respect. The survivors of the war, men who had lost their friends and brothers, gathered at these stones. While drums beat and chants filled the air, they fell into trances, believing that the spirits of the dead had possessed them. These warriors, full of sorrow and anger, then returned to battle again and again, hoping to take revenge on the Rastrakutas. Main points in short. War returned to southern Karnataka. People suffered and died. The old Ganga king, he called vassal kings to help him fight the Rastrakutas. Many heroes died in the battles. The people built hero stones to remember the dead. These stones became sacred and emotional places. Survivors believed the spirits of the dead were in them and kept fighting for revenge. Would you like this summary also turned into a mind map, table, or bullet chart for easier revision? Here is a great detailed summary of the passage, written in the simplest language possible for clear understanding. Summary of the passage in simple words. This passage tells the sad and powerful story of how the Ganga kingdom in southern Karnataka was completely defeated by Krishna I, a strong king of the Rashtrakuta dynasty. 1. Desperate but failed resistance. The Ganga kings and soldiers tried very hard to protect their land from being taken. They fought many brave battles, but were still defeated. Their resistance did not work because Krishna's army was too strong and well organized. 2. Hero stones everywhere. After every battle, the Gangas put up hero stones to honor the soldiers who died. So many people died that these stones covered the land like flowers in a field, making the ground both beautiful and sad. These stones showed that people were ready to die for their kingdom and loyalty. 3. Ruthless destruction by Krishna I. Krishna I sent his armies and vassals, loyal smaller kings, to burn cities, steal goods, kill anyone who resisted. He wanted to show he was the only supreme king of the Deccan region. And 4, great losses for the Gangas. People from all levels of life died. Ordinary soldiers who were barely remembered. Even the Ganga king's own son died in battle. This shows that the war was huge and devastating. 5, a famous warrior, one brave soldier named Kitaya, died near where Bengaluru is today. His hero stone was found in modern times, and now he is remembered as a lost hero. 6. Krishna I captures the Ganga capital. After 11 years of fighting in the year 768 CE, Krishna I finally took control of the Ganga capital city, called Manipura, today Mane, near Bengaluru. This marked the final victory for the Rastrakutas. Nastha claiming the land as his own. Krishna gave some of the land to Brahmins, Hindu priests. This was a way of showing that he was now the rightful owner and overlord of the Ganga land. In ancient times, donating land to Brahmins was also a way to earn respect and religious approval. 8. All other kings defeated. With this victory, all other kings and rivals in the Deccan were now destroyed or silenced. Krishna I stood as the only major ruler in the region. 9. He proved his power by war. Just like many great kings of ancient times, Krishna proved his right to rule through violence and war. He showed that power came from victory, not from birth or peace. 10. He earned royal titles. Krishna I earned many powerful titles. Laladevi equals beloved of the earth. Maharaja Dhirajaja equals great king of kings. Fortune's favorite equals chosen by luck or destiny. These titles showed that he was now the supreme ruler of the land. This passage tells us how a once proud kingdom, the Gangas, was brought to its knees by a more powerful king, Krishna I, who used force, strategy and fear to become the most powerful king in South India. Along the way, Many brave people died, and their memories lived on in hero stones now found and remembered centuries later. Let me know if you'd like a visual timeline, bullet point version, or a child-level story retelling next. Here's a great detailed summary of the passage in the simplest and clearest way possible, with all key ideas explained fully. Nash summary: the end of the Chalukyas and the rise of a new Deccan. The Chalukyas of Vatapi were once a powerful royal dynasty in South India. They were known for defeating Kanchi, a major city in Tamil Nadu, their devotion to the god Shiva, building grand stone temples, being strong, determined, and warlike rulers. But eventually, the Chalukya dynasty ended. They would never return to power. Their rule became a part of history, like a story from the past. What remains today are stories and legends about their kings and wars, temples and monuments they built, which still stand silently, towns and markets they started that grew into modern cities. Though the Chalukyas were gone, the Deccan region, central India, had been transformed forever by what they started. Their legacy, connecting north and south. For nearly 200 years, the Chalukyas worked to connect the northern and southern parts of the Deccan. Through wars, they conquered lands. Through diplomacy, they made allies and married into other royal families. Through patronage, they supported temples, scholars, and artists. This effort created a connected and unified Deccan where trade, culture, and politics flowed across a vast area. More than just kings, a new Deccan identity. If we look beyond the famous kings and queens like Pulakeshin II, Vikramaditya II, Lokamaddevi, Bhavanagar, Danti Durga, Krishna Rastrakuta, we see that the people of the Deccan had changed. Their ambitions and worldview had grown. They now saw themselves as part of a larger, united empire, not just small, scattered kingdoms. A vast and complex empire emerges. By the end of the Chalukya period, a huge empire had formed that stretched from the Narmada River in the north to the Tamil country in the south. This empire was like a rich, colourful fabric made of many different parts. Busy market towns, seaports with people from many cultures, big, lively cities, thick forests and farming lands, new irrigation systems for farming, many temples being built and expanded, a complex society with politics, religion, art, and social mixing. This empire was ruled by powerful, Kannada-speaking kings. They were strong and sometimes ruthless, but they held the Deccan together. The Deccan's time had come. Now, the Deccan had become a mighty force. It was ready to scare enemies with its strength, amaze the rest of India and the world with its size, culture, and power. Key takeaways. The Chalukyas ended, but their impact remained. They helped unite north and south, the base for a huge, powerful empire. This empire brought economic growth, cultural richness, and political power. The Deccan was now stronger than ever and ready to become one of India's greatest regions. Let me know if you'd like this turned into a visual summary, mind map, or Q&A flashcards to help with quick revision. Absolutely. Here's a great detailed and simple summary of the full passage you gave, explained clearly for easy understanding. Summary: the rise of Krishna Rashtrakuta and the making of a monument. After winning a series of major battles in South India, King Krishna I of the Rashtrakuta dynasty returned home in triumph. He had destroyed the power of the Chalukyas and Gangas, two rival kingdoms, and now his kingdom was more powerful than ever. His enemies' lands were in ruins, and the Rashtrakutas were the new rulers of the Deccan, the central southern part of India. But Krishna wanted more than just military victory. He wanted the world to know and remember that his dynasty was the greatest. So he decided to create something so grand and unique that no king before him had ever done it. He planned to build a massive temple in Ellora, a place that would now become the spiritual and political heart of the Rashtrakuta Empire. This temple was to be dedicated to Lord Shiva, whom Krishna deeply worshipped. twice the size of the most famous Chalukya temple at Patadakal, full of new Shaivite ideas about Lord Shiva's powers and stories, a symbol of Rashtrakuta wealth, faith and superiority. But what made this temple truly extraordinary was the way it was built. Unlike most temples, which were made by stacking stones or bricks, this one would be carved directly into a mountain made of hard black basalt rock. Workers cut down into the hill to carve out the entire temple from top to bottom, like a sculpture more than a building. This temple, known today as the Kailasa Temple, was not only a place of worship, but also a giant work of art and power. Krishna wanted this temple to outshine all earlier kings' efforts, especially the Chalukyas and Pallavas, and to send a clear message. The Rastrakutas are now the richest, the most powerful, the most faithful to Shiva and the true emperors of the Deccan. Key points recap. Defeated major rivals and returned to Ellora as a victorious king. He wanted to celebrate his empire and prove Rashtrakuta greatness. He planned to build a temple larger and better than any ever seen. This temple would be cut from a single mountain, a huge innovation. It would show the new style of Shaiva worship and art. The temple would prove the Rastrakutas were the top royal power in. Would you like a shorter version as well? I can also help you visualize it with drawings or pictures if you like. Here's a great detailed summary of the passage, written in the simplest and clearest way possible, with all important points included. Just summary: the rise of Indian superpowers after Harsha's death. After the great North Indian ruler Harsha died around the 7th century CE, there was no strong empire in northern India for nearly 200 years. Many small kingdoms and rulers started fighting to become the most powerful. 1. Rise of multiple superpowers. The Rastrakutas were one powerful group trying to become supreme rulers, but they were not alone. Other groups also wanted to become the most powerful. Especially in western and northern India, many kingdoms were rising.
2. The Pratiharas.
Keepers of the gateways. A group called the Pratiharas became powerful in Rajasthan, Malwa and Gujarat. Their name meant keepers of the gateways. Earlier, the Rashtrakuta king Danti Durga had humiliated them by making them actual doorkeepers during a royal ceremony called the Hiranyagarbha sacrifice. But later, the Pratiharas regained power and began expanding eastwards, especially towards the Gangetic Plains, a rich and fertile region. They started calling themselves Maharaja Dhiraja, King of Kings, just like the Rashtrakutas. 3. Importance of Kannauj. Kannauj, the capital city of Harsha, became a symbol of power. Any king who wanted to rule northern India had to capture Kannauj. It was in a key geographical location between Punjab and the Gangetic Plains, which made it important for trade, farming and military strategy. Many armies and rulers from Kashmir to Malwa tried to take it over. Even foreign invaders tried but failed. 4. Weakness of Kannauj rulers. By the 8th century, the rulers of Kannauj were usually weak and only controlled the city, not a large empire. They felt threatened by the growing powers around them, especially the Pratiharas, the Karkotas of Kashmir, and the Pallas of Bengal. 5. The Pallas, commoners who rose to power. The Pallas were different from the Rashtrakutas and Pratiharas. While those two came from high-class warrior families, the Pallas likely came from low castes or administrators, clerks and scribes. This means they did not have royal blood, but still managed to rise to power and build an empire. Centuries after Harsha's death, 3 great powers emerged. Rashtrakutas from the south and central India, 2 Pratiharas in western and northern India, 3 Pallas in eastern India, Bengal. All of them competed to take control of Kannauj, which became the symbol of supreme power in North India. This led to a period of political rivalry where each tried to become the next great empire. Let me know if you'd like a visual map, timeline, or even a quiz based on this summary. Absolutely. Here's a great detailed summary of the entire passage, written in clear, easy-to-understand language, with all key ideas fully explained.
Sorry.
By the late 8th century CE, around 780 to 800 CE, several regional kingdoms in India, which earlier controlled only local areas, had now grown in power and ambition. They were becoming major players, like the Rastrakutas of the Deccan, and were rising as subcontinental superpowers, meaning they aimed to dominate large parts of India, not just their own small regions. Earlier, these kings were satisfied with being respected by nearby smaller rulers, called petty rajas and maharajas. But now things had changed. They didn't just want respect, they wanted supremacy. They aimed to defeat other great kings, known as maharajas, literally king of great kings. These were not small-time rulers, but powerful rivals. Conquering them was a way to prove true dominance. The kings believed that by conquering these great rivals, they could become the supreme power over all the dynastic polities, the many royal families and kingdoms spread across India. This ambition created political tension and rivalry. At the center of this power struggle was Kannauj, the former capital of the famous King Harsha. Rulers from both eastern India, like the Palace, and western India, like the Gujara Pratiharas, wanted to control Kannauj. It was a symbol of supreme power. Controlling it meant being seen as the legitimate ruler of North India. While these powerful northern kings were circling Kannauj and dreaming of absolute dominance, the Rashtrakuta in the Deccan was quietly observing everything. South of the Narmada River, he watched the developments in the north and made strategic plans of his own to join the competition and expand his influence. At the same time, this period of political rivalry surprisingly led to a flourishing of art and architecture. In history, such bursts of creativity often happen when powerful kings want to show off their greatness through monuments and temples. We have seen earlier examples, like the Chalukyas and Pallavas, who competed to build amazing temples. They even had famous architects like Mandatar in Mahabalipuram and Gundan in Pattadakal, whose names we know today. But during this golden time in the Rashtrakuta kingdom, one of the greatest temples in Indian history was built, the Kailashanatha temple, Cave 16 at Ellora, also called the Krishneshvara temple. Sadly, we don't know the name of the artist or architect who built this stunning masterpiece. That's what the author calls a tragedy. We remember the art, but not the genius behind it. Key themes? 1. Rise of powerful kingdoms. Regional kingdoms grew into large empires competing for dominance across India. 2. Ambition and rivalry. Kings no longer wanted small victories. They wanted to defeat big rivals and be the one true king of kings. 3. Importance of Kannauj. A key city, former capital of King Harsha, became the symbol of ultimate power. Everyone wanted to control it. 4. Role of the Deccan. While North India was fighting for power, the Rashtrakutas in the Deccan were also planning to join the power game. 5. Golden Age of arts. Political competition led to a boom in temple building and architecture, especially under the Rashtrakutas. 6. The Kailashanatha temple at Ellora. A masterpiece of Indian rock-cut architecture was built, but its creator's name is lost to history. Would you like me to give you a timeline, a map, or even a story version of this as a tale? Here's a great detailed summary of the passage, written in the simplest and easiest language so anyone can understand. Topic. The story is about a very old and amazing temple called the Krishneshvara temple, also known as the Kailashanatha temple, Cave 16 at Ellora, made in the 8th century CE in India. 1. The nameless genius builder. We don't know the name of the person who designed the temple. So, we call him the nameless Sthapati, which means an unknown temple architect. He was most likely an expert builder who had worked in Ellora before. He may have also helped King Danti Durga with another famous cave temple. 2. What was Ellora like before the temple? Ellora was a small but sacred holy town. People came here to pray, but it wasn't a grand place. 3. What changed after the temple was built? The Rashtrakuta kings built the Krishneshvara temple. They brought wealth, fame and attention to Ellora. Builders from other parts of India, like Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, also came to help, and the town became full of activity. Soldiers, artists and poor workers lived and worked there. 4. The problem. How to build a massive temple in rock? The king wanted a huge and beautiful temple. But if they just carved a large temple into the side of a hill, the lower parts would be dark and damp. That would ruin the experience of walking around it, which is very important in Hindu worship. 5. The brilliant solution. The nameless Thapati had a genius idea. He cut a giant hollow space out of the hill. Then he carved the temple out of the remaining rock that stood in the middle. It was like cutting a giant block out of a mountain and sculpting a temple from that block. 6. How the temple was built. The temple had a high platform called a plinth, like a stage. This let sunlight reach both the ground and upper floor. The top floor had the main shrine with the god statue, a hall for worship, side shrines, and a big tower called Shikara in Dravidian South Indian style. 7. How the temple looked. The platform was decorated with huge statues, almost twice the height of a person. It looked very grand, especially with the cliff behind it and the bright sky above. 8. The scale of work. To build this temple, workers had to remove about 2 million cubic feet of rock. That's like digging out thousands of truckloads of stone, all by hand. This made it one of the biggest buildings in the entire world in the 8th century, and it was the largest standing rock structure in India at that time. Why it's important. This temple shows the intelligence, creativity, and hard work of Indian builders in ancient times. It still amazes people today, just like it did back then. It reminds us how art and architecture can be deeply connected to religion, kingship, and power. Would you like me to turn this into a story or draw a simple visual explanation for easier understanding? Absolutely. Here's an even more detailed, explained clearly in the simplest way possible for someone with no background knowledge. This will help you understand every idea. Great detailed summary in simple words. 1. The genius architect, the nameless Thapati. The story is about a brilliant unknown architect. We know his real name, so we call him the nameless Thapati, means temple architect. He had a lot of experience building temples and making stone sculptures at Ellora, a famous place in India known for rock-cut temples. He may have even worked on an earlier temple called the Dashavatara Cave Temple, built under King Danti Durga, a Rashtrakuta king. 2. Ellora before and after the Rashtrakutas. Before the Rashtrakutas ruled, Ellora was a small but lively religious town. People came there to worship, and there were small temples and sacred caves. When the Rashtrakuta kings came, especially Krishna I, they poured money into the place and built huge, grand temples. One of the biggest projects they funded was the Krishneshvara temple, also called Kailasa temple. This changed Ellora completely. It became wealthier, more crowded, and more powerful. 3. New people come to work. Because of the money and the temple project, skilled workers and artists from other places, like northern Karnataka and the Tamil region, came to Ellora. These were stone carvers, builders and artists who worked in guilds, groups of skilled professionals. Many were drawn by the wealth of the Rashtrakuta kings, which came partly from wars and conquests, is called blood money because it came through violence. The scene at Ellora. The town of Ellora must have looked very mixed. Rowdy Rashtrakuta soldiers drinking and celebrating, poor labourers living in mud huts and working very hard. There was a big gap between the rich royal court and the poor common workers. Today, historians say that we still need large-scale archaeological excavations at Ellora to understand more about this time.
5.
The architect's brilliant problem solving. The king, Krishnawai, wanted a grand temple carved into a mountain, even bigger and better than earlier ones. If the architect had just copied an older temple like the Lokeshvara temple at Patadakal and made it bigger, there would be problems. The lower parts would be damp, dark, and unpleasant. This would ruin the spiritual experience of walking around the temple, called circumambulation.
6.
His smart and creative solution. The nameless Sthapati came up with a new idea. Instead of just carving a temple into a mountain, he would dig out a huge open space in the rock. In this open space, he would build a giant temple from the top down, not the bottom up. The temple would stand on a very high base, plinth, higher than anything seen before in Indian temples. Because it was so high up, the sunlight could reach both the ground floor and the first floor of the temple. This made the temple bright, airy, and beautiful to walk through. 7. Special features of the temple. The first floor of the temple had the main shrine where the god's idol was kept, a large hall for people to gather and worship, smaller shrines for other gods, a big tower, spire, on top in Dravidian, South Indian style, which had never been used so far north before. The lower part of the temple, the high plinth, was decorated with massive sculptures. Each statue was almost twice as tall as a person. These statues looked amazing when seen next to the raw mountain rock, which was not carved, the sky above, which made the whole view dramatic and stunning, the gigantic temple rising in the middle. 8. The scale of the work. Unbelievable. To make this temple, workers had to remove about 2 million cubic feet of rock. This is an enormous amount. This made the Krishneshvara Kailasa temple one of the biggest temples in the entire world at that time, 8th century. It was the largest freestanding rock-cut temple in India. All of this was done without machines, just with hammers, chisels, and teamwork. Final thoughts. The nameless Sthapati showed genius, creativity, and problem-solving skills. He built something that was not only beautiful and huge, but also practical and well lit. The temple still inspires wonder in everyone who sees it, even centuries later, just like it amazed people in the 8th century. This temple is a symbol of artistic brilliance, hard work, and royal ambition. Would you like a visual diagram or drawing idea to help understand this better? Or a short poem story version to make it even more fun to learn? Sure, here's a great detailed passage you gave, written in the simplest while still covering all the important points. Detailed summary of the passage in easiest language. The Krishneshvara temple at Ellora was a huge and complex project. It was not something that could be done by just anyone. It required 1. A genius builder with generations of knowledge. The person who imagined and designed this temple was not just talented, but had learned from many generations of cave temple builders. He knew how to solve problems of planning, carving, and adding religious images for different people and religions.
That's 2. A powerful and rich.
Building such a temple was very expensive. Only a big, powerful empire like the Rastrakutas could pay for it. They likely wanted to prove their power and greatness through this temple. 3. Help from many skilled people. The temple was made with the help of many experts. Priests knew the rituals and spiritual meanings. Monks brought wisdom from religious schools. Sculptors and artists carved beautiful images. These people came from many different regions of southern India, bringing their own traditions and skills.
4.
All came together at Ellora in the 700s. By the late 8th century, 700s AD, all these people came together at Ellora, which became a center of artistic and religious activity. Temples are more than buildings. A temple is not just made by builders and workers. It is also a sacred space filled with, so were needed to help choose which gods to show, where to place them, what stories to carve. They worked closely with the architects to decorate the temple with deep meaning. 6. So many surfaces to decorate. The Krishneshvara temple had hundreds or thousands of parts that could be decorated. Teams of priests and sculptors decided what to carve on each wall, roof and pillar. 7. Example of symbolic decoration. The lions on the roof of the temple. There are 4 roaring lions. Each lion faces a different diagonal direction, NE, SE, SW, NW. Each lion holds a big lotus flower. These lions probably symbolize the Rastrakutas' military power across the land. The meaning may have also included spiritual or religious ideas we no longer know. 8. The priests came from important religious schools. The priests who helped with the temple were likely from a Shiva-following monastery. They were connected to the most current teachings and practices of Shaivism in the Deccan. They knew the latest rituals, myths and texts and brought that knowledge into the temple's design.
9.
The temple shows how Hinduism was changing. The sculptures and images is in the Krishneshvara snapshot of Hinduism in the 700s. They show how Hindu beliefs, gods and stories were evolving at that time. The temple is like a mirror of the religion, art and society of that time.
Final summary sentence.
The Krishneshvara temple at Ellora was a grand and sacred creation made possible by the deep knowledge of generations of builders, the money and power of the Rashtrakuta Empire, the teamwork of excellent artists, and the evolving beliefs of Hinduism in the 8th century. Would you like this turned into bullet point, mind map, or a visual diagram next? Here's a detailed but very summary entire passage you shared. I've explained every key event and idea clearly, step by step, so it's easy to understand and remember. Detailed summary in simplest language. In the late 700s CE, the Deccan region of South India was full of action, not just in building amazing temples like Ellora, but also in powerful political and military events. One of the biggest players at this, the Rastrakuta dynasty, a king named Krishna. In the year 769 CE, Krishna had just defeated the Ganga dynasty in a harsh war. He wanted to make sure that no other old royal families like the Chalukyas of Vengi in present-day Andhra Pradesh could rise up and become powerful again. So he sent his 2 sons, Govinda and Dhruva, to take control of the rich lands in that area. These 2 brothers were already very important. They had likely helped from the beginning in defeating the powerful Vatapi Chalukyas, an older ruling family. Even though the Rashtrakutas ran their kingdom like a family business, with power, Govinda not supposed to become kings during the life of Danti Durga, the first famous Rashtrakuta ruler. They'd probably only expected to become generals or governors, not kings. But everything changed suddenly when Danti Durga died unexpectedly and his uncle Krishna took the throne. This gave Govinda and Dhruva a big opportunity, and by 769 CE they were already famous in South India for defeating the Vatapi Chalukyas. Among the 2, Dhruva was especially fierce. He was known as a ruthless warlord who proudly called himself Kali Vallabha, meaning beloved of war and chaos. People feared him. So when the Vengi Chalukyas saw him coming, they decided not to fight. Even though they were proud of their royal past, they wisely chose to surrender peacefully, but not to Dhruva. They surrendered to his older and gentler brother, Govinda, who was kinder. Soon after, Dhruva, who already had 2 sons from a previous marriage, married a young princess from the Vengi Chalukya family named Shila Mahadevi. She was still a teenager, nearly 20 years younger than him. This marriage was likely a political alliance, meant to show peace between the 2 families and strengthen Rashtrakuta control over Vengi. Let me know if you'd like a shorter version for quick revision or possible exam-style questions based on this. Here's a great, detailed and super simple summary of the full passage you gave earlier in clear and easy English. Detailed summary of the passage, simplest way. Background. Krishna's powerful Rashtrakuta king started build temple at Ellora, a grand and beautiful rock-cut temple. But Krishna I died in 773 CE before the temple was finished. A new king and a hidden rival. After Krishna's death, Govinda II became the new king of the Rastrakutas. His younger brother, Dhruva, was given an important job, governor of two big areas, Nashik and Khandesh. Trouble begins. Dhruva didn't stay loyal. He wanted to be king himself. He told people that Govinda II was not a good king. He said Govinda was too interested in fun, music and parties, too soft with other rulers who should be controlled. He claimed Govinda was ignoring his royal duty, called dharma in Indian tradition. Why people listened to Dhruva? There were already signs of trouble in the kingdom, like the Gangas preparing to fight. Many important nobles and leaders thought Dhruva might be stronger and better than Govinda II. Dhruva tries to act like king. Dhruva secretly issued land grants, official documents giving land to people, without asking Govinda. This was a bold move, like saying, I don't need the king's permission. I am the king now. Govinda reacts. When Govinda found out, he got very angry. He took away Dhruva's powers and titles. That means Dhruva lost his job as governor. Dhruva fights back. The coup! Dhruva then acted like he was the one being treated unfairly. He got support from nobles, raised an army, and started a rebellion. He carried out a coup d'etat, which means he forcefully took over the throne. The end of Govinda took. Dhruva defeated Govinda and became king. After the coup, Govinda II vanished from history. No one knows what happened to him. What this tells us, power struggles were common in ancient kingdoms, even between brothers. Clever tricks, rumors, and political moves could change who sat on the throne. Kings had to be strong, smart, and careful, or they could lose everything. Let me know if you want a quick quiz, character list, timeline, or visual chart to help remember this even better. Here is a great detailed summary of the full passage in the simplest possible. Summary. The rise of Queen Shila Mahadevi, 780 CE. In the year 780 CE, Dhruva Rashtrakuta, a powerful Indian king, and his wife Shila Mahadevi were formally crowned through important royal and religious rituals. Shila Mahadevi was originally a princess from the Chalukya dynasty of Vengi. Even though her family from Vatapi had been defeated by the Rastrakutas, Shila became queen through marriage to Dhruva. Despite coming from a defeated family, Shila's strength, intelligence, she managed to convince her husband Dhruva to give her a special status, similar to another famous and powerful queen from the past named Loka Mahadev. Soon after Dhruva's coronation, Shila had her own special ceremony. She was given a magnificent head ornament called the Pattabandha, which was like a royal headband or crown made of silk or gold, worn around the forehead. This special crown was part of an important ritual, and it officially made her the Pata Mahadevi, which means crowned great queen. This was the highest title a queen could get while still being married to a ruling king. Some other queens in Indian history who ruled by themselves, not with a king, took on male titles like Maharaj Great King or Maharadi Raja, King of Kings. But Shila had great power while still being the king's wife. The Pattabandha tradition might have come from Persian royal customs and was adapted in India. Wearing it wasn't just for looks, it was part of a sacred ceremony that gave the queen real powers, like land sovereignty or other forms of authority. By giving her this title and performing the ceremony, Dhruva was publicly declaring that Shila was not just his wife, but his equal partner in ruling the kingdom, sharing even the spiritual and cosmic power that came with being king. Let's recap. Quick list. Dhruva Rashtrakuta and Shila Mahadevi crowned in 780 CE. Shila was a Chalukya princess from Vengi, related to rulers of Vatapi, who were defeated by Rashtrakutas. Despite this, she gained great status and respect in her new kingdom. She received the Pattabandha, royal crown headband, in a sacred ritual. This made her the Pata Mahadevi, the highest title for a queen with a king. The ritual gave her real powers, like control over land or political roles. Dhruva treated her as an equal in power and divine right to rule. Want a timeline, map, diagram, or memory trick to remember this better? Sure! Here's a great detailed summary of the passage in clear, simple language that covers all the key ideas while helping you understand the story and meaning fully. Detailed summary. The ambitions and conquests of King Dhruva of the Rastrakuta dynasty. After becoming the new emperor of the Rastrakuta dynasty, King Dhruva set out on a grand and ambitious mission called Digvijaya, which means victory in all directions. In ancient Indian tradition, Digvijaya was not just a normal war. It was the highest and most honourable goal for any powerful king who followed dharma, righteousness and duty. It meant conquering lands in all four directions, north, south, east and west, and showing his supreme power over all other rulers. By starting a Digvijaya, Dhruva was aiming to rebuild and recenter the Rajamandala, the ancient political circle of kings, with himself at the centre as the emperor or overlord. India at that time had many small kingdoms, often fighting with each other. Dhruva's goal was to bring them together under one empire, led by him, turning a scattered network of competing rulers into a united imperial power. To achieve this, Dhruva's armies began a massive campaign to subjugate, defeat and control the 4 quarters of the Indian subcontinent. They would loot wealth, conquer territories and reorganize the political order to show that he was destined to rule, as if chosen by fortune itself. Over the next 10 years, a decade, Dhruva expanded the influence of the Deccan region, central and southern India, to an extraordinary level. His power grew so vast that it would not be matched again for nearly 1,000 years until the rise of the Maratha Empire in the 17th century. But before spreading his empire far and wide, Dhruva had to make sure his own kingdom, the Rastrakuta power, was secure from threats. He needed to make sure that no rivals at home could challenge him. While the details of this internal process are unclear in history, we know that by 786 to 787 CE, his forces had already completed military raids in southern Karnataka and Tamilakam, ancient Tamil Nadu. These attacks were fierce, and they caused great damage to the Pallavas, who were once a powerful dynasty but had become weak by then. One poet from Dhruva's time described the moment poetically. He said that the Pallava king surrendered because he was trapped like someone stuck between 2 oceans. One was the huge Rastrakuta army, and the other was the Bay of Bengal, a real sea. This shows how vast and unstoppable Dhruva's army was, almost like a natural force that could not be resisted. Main points at a glance. Dhruva, the new Rastrakuta king, launched a Digvijaya, a conquest in all directions of India. This was the highest honour for any righteous king, to unite India under one empire. His goal was to reform the Rajamandala and make himself the central ruler. India at the time had many small fighting kingdoms. He wanted to bring them under one rule. His armies conquered lands, looted wealth and reorganized kingdoms. He believed he was chosen by fate to do this. Over a decade, he made the Deccan region extremely powerful, more than it would be again until the Marathas came 1,000 years later. He first secured his own kingdom and then started attacking other parts of South India. In 786 to 787 CE, his army invaded southern Karnataka and Tamilakam. They defeated the Pallavas, who were already weakened. A poet described the surrendering because Dhruva's army was like an ocean, vast and impossible to escape from. Let me know if you want this summary in bullet points only, mind map format, timeline of events, quiz style format for revision. Happy to help. Absolutely. Here's a great detailed summary of the passage you shared, written in the simplest and clearest language, explaining everything that's important. Detailed summary of the passage, 20 September 786, Empress Shila Mahadevi's land grant and praise for Dhruva. 1. Historical date and event, On 27th of September 786, just one day after a total solar eclipse, an important event took place. In ancient India, a solar eclipse was seen as a powerful and sacred moment. People believed that it had spiritual importance and often took ritual baths afterward. Number 2. The Empress Shila Mahadevi. The central figure here is Empress Shila Mahadevi, the wife of Rastrakuta Emperor Dhruva. After purifying herself with a holy bath, she made an important land donation to some Brahmins, learned priests or scholars in the Hindu tradition. This act was not only religious but also a political one, showing her generosity and royal authority. 3. The Empress's mobile court. Like the Emperor, the Empress did not stay in one place. She travelled with her own royal group, known as her personal court. This included ladies-in-waiting, mostly wives or daughters of local kings, officials and staff such as tax collectors, messengers, writers, scribes and praise panegyrists. This shows she had real power, administrative control and influence, just like a king. 4. The Prashasti royal inscription. On that day, the Queen ordered a Prashasti, praise inscription, to be carved. A Prashasti is a beautifully written record, often in Sanskrit, that praises a ruler and tells the story of their greatness. This Prashasti gives us a rare and valuable look into the Queen's own thoughts, her political awareness, and her relationship with her husband. Number 5. What the Prashasti said about Dhruva. The Queen described Emperor Dhruva as an incredibly powerful and divine-like ruler. He had conquered many forts, which symbolized power across the three worlds, heaven, earth, and underworld in Indian belief. Stopped the flow of the Ganga, probably a poetic way of saying he did something extraordinary and unforgettable. The Pallava king, who had and took all his wealth and success, saying Dhruva was the only man in the world who had shown the qualities Parameshvara, the Supreme Lord, a divine title usually used for gods or very powerful kings. 6. Why this is important. This event shows that queens were not just silent partners. They had real power, moved with courts, gave land and commissioned public records. It also shows how rulers used beautiful Sanskrit poetry to express their power, success and divine right to rule. The praise of Dhruva helps historians understand how royalty was imagined, respected and honoured in the 8th century. It also connects politics with religion, poetry and ritual, a very Indian royal. In short, on the 27th of September, Empress Shila Mahadevi, after a sacred bath following a solar eclipse, gave land to Brahmins and ordered a beautiful praise message to be written about her husband, King Dhruva. In this message, she praised Dhruva's great military victories, his almost divine power, and described him as the only true supreme ruler in the world. The event shows us how powerful queens could be, how poetic and rich royal inscriptions were, and how religion, politics and language were deeply linked in ancient India. Would you like a bullet point summary, a fun quiz, or a story-style retelling next? Sure, here's a detailed summary of the passage, broken down in a simple and easy to understand way. 1. Dhruva's rise to power. Dhruva was a powerful king from the Rastrakuta dynasty in medieval India around the 8th century. He was very ambitious and wanted to expand his kingdom by defeating other kings and taking control of more territories. His wife, Shila Mahadevi, supported him and thought he was the greatest king, worthy of ruling over all other kings in India. Dhruva and his wife had secured most of South India by defeating powerful kingdoms such as the Gangas, Cholas, Chandyas, and Vengi Chalukyas. The Arabian Sea protected Dhruva's western borders, while his father-in-law helped him protect the eastern region of his empire.
2. Sheila's praise for Dhruva. Shila Mahadevi, Dhruva's wife,
praised him by comparing him to the god Shiva. She said Dhruva was as great as Shiva, who is known for holding the Ganga river in his hair. This was a clever metaphor, meaning Dhruva had conquered the Ganga family, a powerful group in South India. She said only a great king like her husband could be worthy of ruling the entire world, making Dhruva the ideal ruler in her eyes. 3. Victory over the Gangas. By 788 AD, Dhruva had defeated the Ganga kingdom, captured their king, and made his eldest son the ruler of their lands, called Gangavadi. His father-in-law ruled the eastern region, securing the eastern flank of Dhruva's empire. Dhruva's western border was safe because of the Arabian Sea. With all these lands controlled by Dhruva and his allies, the entire southern part of India was now at peace under his rule. This made Dhruva very close to becoming the perfect king who had conquered all 4 directions, north, south, east and west, a goal that ancient kings aspired to. 4. Dhruva's continued ambition. Even after achieving so much, Dhruva's ambition didn't stop. He constantly sought more power and glory. He always looked for new opportunities to expand his empire.
5. The Kashmir event.
In the late 780s, a small event set off a series of problems that would lead to a big conflict. The kingdom of Kashmir in the Himalayan mountains raided Kannauj, a city in northern India. They captured the king of Kannauj and held him for ransom, which means they asked for money to free him. 6. The Pratihara king's response. Vatsaraja, the king of the Pratihara dynasty, saw this as an opportunity. He marched to Kannauj, took control of the city, and set up his own candidate as the new king. By doing this, Vatsaraja was announcing that the Pratihara claimed control of North India and the fertile lands along the Ganga River. 7. Power struggle begins. This act sparked a power struggle between 3 powerful kingdoms of medieval India: the Rastrakutas, Dhruva's dynasty, the Pratiharas, Vatsaraja's dynasty, and the Palas, another powerful dynasty in eastern India. This conflict is known as the tripartite struggle because 3 kingdoms fought for control of Kannauj, which was the most important and wealthy region in northern India at the time. The fight for Kannauj became a symbol of power and control over the entire Indian subcontinent.
Great. Conclusion.
Dhruva's empire was strong and vast, having conquered much of the south, but his ambition made him seek even more power. The Kashmir attack and Pratihara interference led to a big political struggle for control over northern India, particularly Kannauj, and this would continue for many years between the 3 major powers. Summary of key points. Dhruva, king of the Rashtrakutas, was very powerful, conquering many regions in South India. His wife, Shila Mahadevi, praised him by comparing him to the god Shiva. By 788 AD, Dhruva had defeated several kingdoms, secured his empire, and nearly achieved the status of the perfect king by controlling all 4 directions of India. However, Dhruva's ambition never stopped. An incident in Kashmir led to the Pratihara Empire claiming control of Kannauj, which sparked the tripartite struggle between the Rastrakutas, Pratiharas and Palas for control of northern India. This was a time of shifting powers. Strongest kings fought not just for land, but also for glory, control and the title of India's supreme ruler. The tripartite struggle became one of the most defining conflicts in Indian history, lasting for several centuries. Let me know if you'd like further details or additional explanations.